Jen, let me start with you because you worked on one of the aforementioned campaigns alongside Hillary Clinton in 2016. I'm curious what you make of this format of debate, a format that you all did not have, obviously, in 2016, which is to say, no crowd hooping and hollering when Donald Trump says something or when President Biden says something either, muted mics, and sort of that just a small studio setting where the moderators actually may be able to control things and ask follow-up questions. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, can we just pause to revel in how Hillary was able to hold it together and talk about Medicare Part D with a lot of composure while Donald Trump is just like looming over her. She's like, I mean, the woman has unbelievable stamina and focus. So I think that this will probably be more watchable than that first debate for 2020 with President Biden and Trump. That's where we heard the "Will you shut up, man?" because it was so out of control. But I think if I were prepping the president for the Biden team, the thing I'd be the most worried about is a disciplined Trump, and that the fact that there's no audience for him to feed off of, that your mics are muted, means that he can be buttoned up, he can keep it together, he can stay on message. We've seen him do that, and so I think that you might get. It's better for Biden to not have the audience that Trump can feed off of, but it's not a zero-sum game. That it could be that Trump ends up being a little more disciplined, and that's what you have to prepare for, both in how you prep President Biden, but also in how you're characterizing the debate going forward. I'm always thinking, well, like, what next? What comes after Thursday night, and how is the Biden team going to pick up those arguments, and drive them for the rest of the campaign?
It is amazing too, just how the extent to which. And because they're setting it up this way on Trump's side, Donald Trump will be graded on a curve if he's, quote, disciplined, meaning he doesn't go on a long rant during a presidential debate about, say, sharks and electric boat batteries. Somehow that might be a win for him. Jonathan Lemire, you're down there in Atlanta, in the press area across the street from where the debate will be held tonight. As our audience wakes up at 6 o'clock on the West Coast, what should they be prepared for tonight?
Well, first of all, Will, you're right. This setting where I am is a bit deceptive. This is the basketball arena here on the Georgia Tech campus. Tonight, this will be crawling with reporters, with surrogates, elected officials making their case, the spin room, if you will, for both President Biden and Donald Trump. But the two men themselves will be across the street in a small, quiet studio. It's the two of them and two moderators. Both sides playing the expectations games in terms of performance, but they both agree on something. Tonight matters more than the usual presidential debate. It is historically early. This is the earliest general election debate we've ever had, in part from the Biden team that wanted to shake up what had been a pretty static race to this point. Very tight, close race, but most polls show Donald Trump up just barely in the key battleground states. But also it was for the president's team to sort of wake up Americans to say, this is your choice. Donald Trump is not going to drop out. Joe Biden is not going to drop out. It's A versus B. And even if you don't like this choice, a lot of Americans are not enthusiastic about this particular campaign, you're going to have to make a decision. And the Biden team is betting that they will look at Donald Trump, especially if he is unmoored this evening, and say, we don't want 4 more years of that. So the stakes are really high. We know President Biden's going to hit on democracy and abortion and other issues. We should expect Donald Trump to talk about inflation and immigration. Simone, though, parties to both campaigns agree tonight matters. But there's such a thin sliver of undecideds here. We're such a polarized nation. This is such a frozen race that when I spoke to some senior Biden officials yesterday, they said even if President Biden has the best possible night, probably moves the polls a couple of points. And we're obviously still a long way to go to November. But in a race this tight, a couple of points still important. Conversely, if you were to have a disastrous night, that would be potentially the bigger game changer.
Yeah, I think your calculation about this is right, Jonathan. And I think the Biden officials are reading it correctly. I would only caution that while there may be a small sliver of undecideds, there are base Democratic voters. I was just in Virginia 2 days ago, and I was doing an event. And at the end of this event, I, of course, had to ask a political question. And I asked folks how they felt about in the lead up to November. And a number of people on the stage answered the question. And there was a black woman on the stage who answered the question and said, look, I'm actually really struggling with what I'm going to do this November, deciding between the two candidates. She was not a registered Republican. OK, so I would just argue that it is not a foregone conclusion that base Democratic voters are folks who have reliably voted for Democrats, black women, right, young people, even a subset of Latino voters are going to come out and vote for Joe Biden. And so this debate, lots of people will be watching, not just those undecideds, but folks who are saying, I don't know, and they want to see how Joe Biden performs against Donald Trump and vice versa.
So that New York Times and Siena College poll Gabe mentioned in his report also revealed some vulnerabilities for Donald Trump because of his hush money criminal trial conviction, especially among independent voters. When asked if Trump's conviction would affect their support, twice as many independents said it made them more likely to oppose the former president than support him. The poll also found a majority of independents believe Trump received a fair and impartial trial. So, George Conway, your thoughts politically on how Joe Biden, if Joe Biden should even go there on his conviction in the criminal hush money trial, or, in my opinion, the best place to go would be in an area where Donald Trump is completely admitted to doing what he's accused of doing, which is steal classified documents and store them in his public club in Mar-a-Lago, and what that means to our country's security. Your thoughts on how Joe Biden should play this tonight, if you think it could have a counter reaction in any way?
Look, I think all of the above. I think he has to go after Trump on everything in a restrained but very sharp way. He's running against a convicted criminal and adjudicated rapist. He should not be afraid of saying that. It's a fact. If you don't say that, then you're basically condoning it. And I think it's important to do that, not only because the American public has to be continually reminded. I mean, repetition is key in politics, but also because it gets under Trump's skin. I mean, we're talking here about whether or not Donald Trump can hold it together for the allotted period of time, and he might be able to, but he's less able to if you keep hitting him on these things that he's most sensitive about. And that's really important, I think, because I think one of the advantages that Trump had before he was convicted on 34 felony counts and became a convicted felon was that he was off everyone's radar screen. The people didn't see much of him. He was deplatformed in January 2021. This is important. I think the Biden campaign made the correct move to get Trump out there early so that people can see him. He is considerably less effective. Trump is he's considerably less coherent than he was even 2 or 4 years ago. And he's in a much more fragile emotional state. He's a narcissistic sociopath who is he's unraveling, and we need to help him unravel.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.